Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. Holla at your boy. Now, I'm here with Elliot and Sarah Thomas, and today we're going at it. Okay, we're going to be real. We're going to tell the truth. We're talking about diversity in ed tech and the lack thereof. And so, what up, y'all? Say hello to the folks.
Hi,
Ladies first.
everybody. Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you very
Yeah, go
much.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, everybody. What's up? I'm Sarah Thomas, also known as Sarah the Teacher, living in the DC metro area, loving life.
Okay, I'm Elliot, fifth grade educator, technology enthusiast, teaching Hoover, Alabama. Actually, Hoover is playing on ESPN right now. Hoover High.
excellent, excellent. And so, what we're going to do here, because this has been with me. It's been marinating for months, and I didn't jump on it before, but we're getting on it now. This is going to be part of a three-part series. All right. So all of us here have gone to EdTech conferences. We presented EdTech conferences and all these organizations, and unfortunately, what we normally see is the leadership is not representative, nor a lot of times when you see the high profile uh, panel discussions, they're not representative as well. And so I would like your thoughts on that. When we let's just jump into it. What are your thoughts on that, Al? For knowing what we do, and we're on Twitter and all the work we're doing, and then you get to a conference and you see sort of what's going on. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I mean, like ultimately, I think that a lot of people are just used to what they're used to. You know what I mean? So, like, if you don't, if you're not I guess a white, middle aged, pen pocket protector, glasses wearing type, geek squad type person, there are certain assumptions that are made, and I think we all kind of fall, prey to making certain assumptions about people. But I think the one thing that I've found by joining like other people's hangouts and following other people's Twitter chats is that I'm always wrong. So it kind of helped me to not have those preconceived notions, because I just know, just like a lot of times in certain, especially like ed camps, a lot of people just go to sessions that they're familiar with. And a lot of times when I go to ed camps, I present on stuff that they've never heard of. So when I write something on the wall like book track, if it's not Google Documents, if it's not Twitter, if it's not, Instagram or something that they've heard of, and with the fact that I don't look like the traditional ed tech guru, just a lot of times my sessions are not filled up. I mean, and I'm gonna like to think that that is the majority of the reason. A lot of times when I go present at certain sessions, that my session may not be as full, because most of the time after my session, then the response is like, "Oh man, I missed it. I wish I was there." Or when they hear about it, I'll get good feedback, or they'll want some interaction later. But I just think a lot of times, that the majority of people that are already kind of known or already kind of doing what they're doing in ed tech, they just kind of go with what they're familiar with, I think.
Sarah?
Yeah, I want to echo what I was just saying, definitely, and I'm seeing that a lot in the different conferences and things of that nature. And a lot of times the speaker diversity doesn't really match the demographics of the attendees. That's one thing that definitely needs to needs to be addressed, because like Al was saying, a lot of these same names are going to are presenting at the same conferences, and that's what people are used to, that's what people go with. But I think that there needs to be a voice for everyone, because so many of us have such great ideas, so many people in general have such great ideas. So I think that the conference organizers, they really need to start being more selective, or more open to different names, different ideas. And I was discussing this with another colleague of ours, and yeah, that just seems to be what the situation is in the ed tech world.
No, because what I find crazy is I went, all of us went to ISTE,
Right.
and I'm there. and I'm walking around and I'm looking in the crowds, and I'm like, where did these black people come from? Where did these Latinos come from? Where did these Asians come from? Where did these Indians come from? Because I don't see these people on Twitter at all. And I'm like, wow, this is just like a deliciousness of the rainbow going on. And they're not on Twitter. I don't see them leading a lot of sessions at ISTE. And then it starts to make me wonder, what's going on. Is at this point, does it become a lack of the organizers knowing that we're there, or is it on our part, us not getting out there to run on boards or present at conferences, etc.? Because I was just, dumbfounded with what I visually saw versus what took place rather, when you actually got into the sessions themselves. Who wants to
I jump on that because I actually served on a committee to like select the sessions that were presented at ISTE. And so the sessions that were submitted, a lot of, and let me say this, the only way that I actually served on the committee is somebody invited me to serve on the committee. It was like, hey, do you want to serve on this committee to peruse some of the presentations to see if this session would be good or not? And so had I not been invited, I wouldn't have known about that. And so after being invited, and now that I know, now I'm looking for, like it happened like in, I guess, late September, like around this time coming up, this is when they will start submitting sessions for ISTE. Well, how many people know that? Like, where is that advertised? If you're not on ISTE's blog, or if you're not getting ISTE's feed, how will you know about that? And then, like with Twitter, as a matter of fact, on October 26th, the next Monday's Eve discussion will be about Twitter and how to use it. And what I really want is people that are on Twitter with certain hashtags to be on the Hangout and explain it, because Twitter is one of those places, it is so easy to get overwhelmed. Like, within the last 9 months, I understand hashtags better. And I know that all hashtags are not created equally. And I know that some things are a better hashtag than they are a chat, right? Like sometimes you don't need to show up at such and such time to reap the benefits of this chat or this hashtag, and kind of understanding those dynamics. And so I think, who is explaining Twitter? Well, a lot of the sessions that I go to where people are explaining Twitter, they don't know how Twitter works for real. They think Twitter is one thing. Well, okay, you can have your kids and you can put your work on here, whatever. Well, just at the rate of improper friend requests that I get, I don't feel comfortable with kids being on Twitter. Just because Twitter is open, anybody can be on there. There is no type of safeguard. So I personally don't like Twitter for the classroom, but I love Twitter for do-it-yourself professional development. But that's one thing to try to understand. So even the people that are promoting Twitter and love Twitter and all over Twitter, a lot of times the spaces that they're encouraging people to be in on Twitter, they get into these spaces. I'm a 3rd grade teacher or a 4th grade teacher, and I'm finding out, okay, I sent out a tweet and this is what my kids did. Now what? And they start to feel lost. So I think there needs to be a better explanation to exactly how to use Twitter for your benefit, and why so many people are excited about it, and why so many people go to
it. Exactly. And I guess I'll piggyback on that. Being that it's 2014, social media is huge right now, and if you're an educator, you're not using social media, then I mean that's putting you at a huge disadvantage, because so many great ideas, so many great conversations, collaborations going on Twitter. So what I'm trying to do my part little by little to try to convert people, to get them onto social media, especially teachers that we're talking about, teachers of color, who we're not seeing at these conference sessions, because so many of us have so many great ideas. So many people of all shades of the rainbow have so many great ideas, but just because they're not in that social media world and collaborating with other people, making those connections, then their ideas are not being heard. and that is, that's hurting us all. It would benefit, it benefits the profession every time someone shares something what they're doing in their classroom. So that's kind of my drive behind this current school year, and possibly for the rest of my life. Just try to get some people more connected. Try to get everybody more connected. Don't care who they are. Don't care where they come from. Everybody has a story, so it's time to start sharing.
And if I could just piggyback on that too, I think often, especially if you teach in a system that isn't known for being the example, the exemplar, or whatever you want to call it, a lot of times you get in the mode of hearing what you're doing wrong and what you need to do better. So then you start to believe that you don't have any good ideas even when you do. Or if I want to share my good ideas, I may have a wonderful idea, but because my system is being threatened with state takeover, or because we don't have enough money to buy everybody an iPad, I think that okay, this digital space that everybody's talking about, I'm excluded from because of these things that I don't have. And it's very easy to get into that mentality of thinking that, what, I can't have anything positive or good to contribute because I work at a place where they keep telling me I don't.
Now, Sarah, what's interesting about you, among other stuff, is you have presented at some very well-known large conferences, and I've seen pictures of you with a lot of people, and you've made the GTA and all of those things in which diversity is seriously lacking. So when you are there and amongst that crowd and people see you, are those discussions of the lack of diversity present? Is that something that you find maybe more so on your mind, possibly as a woman of color, or do you find some of your other white colleagues themselves look around and go, damn, we got a problem?
It's funny that you say that, because generally I don't see those discussions being held explicitly. Recently, with the events going on in the world, particularly in Ferguson, I've noticed that there's been more of an openness. People are starting to address issues, real issues. But in the past, prior to that, then that was just kind of the elephant in the room, something that that wasn't really discussed. I've spoken with some other presenters of color about the situation where we're not really being represented fully, and but that's just kind of been like a one-on-one or two-on-two or three-on-three like social type thing. It hasn't been addressed in a formal situation I've seen. But hopefully now, with people being more open to to discuss ideas and to have these quote unquote taboo conversations, then hopefully we'll start seeing a change.
I also think too, though, like not really necessarily waiting for anybody to have the discussion. I think, like, for example, right now, what you're doing, Dr. Will, I think is just what needs to be done. And the more people of color see people of color, the more attractive I think that is. Like, of course, we're gregarious by nature, and even whether it's intentional or unintentional, we tend to seek out our own quote-unquote kind. And I think that's just kind of, like, they've been experiments where people, like the first day of college, where you've got a mixed class of diverse, students and background, and they'll pass out a red hat and a blue hat. Just when you come in, they give you no instructions, and with no instructions, the people with the red hats go sit with the people with the red hats, and the people with the blue hats go sit with the people with the blue hats, and no one told them to. So a lot of times, our culture and our society moves along certain lines that we're not even aware of. And so being unaware of those lines, those that are aware of those lines, to me, have the responsibility to say, okay, since I know this is what's going on, I'm going to make sure that I am the person, I am the elephant in the room. I will be the black man that knows about technology and go in the room full of everybody that don't look like me and let them know, hey, guess what? This is what we do too. and you know, or I will be the one to go to places where people think that they are not technologically savvy, and they use that as a barrier, right? So you know, that's kind of my whole thing. Like I started the Monday's Eve discussion because we, and when I say we, I mean educators, it could be people of color, it could be educators in general, but we are not invited to the discussions of the policymakers. So instead of waiting to be invited to those discussions, let's invite them to ours. Let's have these discussions. And with this platform, it's beautiful because it can be saved to YouTube, we can share it, and even if they don't really want to watch it live, it's still a record of what we talked about, and we can keep kind of just moving that whole dialogue forward.
Okay, okay. Now, in that dialogue and spirit, do you think organizations need to be? I don't, and I'm trying to phrase this the right way, but do you think if they are unaware of it, or even if they are aware, you know, wow, we have a problem here, do you think they owe it? I guess, and I don't want to say oh because I don't want that to have a negative connotation, but when they are sitting, you, Al, you mentioned earlier that you have been in the planning, kind of checking out what people are presenting, but do you think they owe it to themselves or the field to sit down and say, we know what our past attendees have looked like, we know what our past presenters have looked like, we know what our board looks like, and that they should sit down and proactively say, we need to diversify our board. We need to make an effort to recruit presenters of color. Especially with Twitter out there, it's not like if they don't know anyone, it's not like they can't find anyone. Or do you think in them actively recruiting, actively making certain moves, that they themselves maybe putting themselves in the midst of some sort of race game, or what some may say reverse racism?
Okay, so I personally am a conspiracy theorist. Let me just put that out there, okay? So almost every conspiracy you ever heard of, I probably believe it, thought of it, wrote about it. So let me start there. Now, that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the conspiracies that I have, and I'm going to try to make it applicable to this situation. I don't necessarily think that integration was the best thing. And the reason why I'm going to say that is when black people specifically had to spend money and stay within a black community, then black communities actually thrived more. If you look at a thriving black community, here's what you have. You have people of color that live there, people of color that work there, and people of color that spend their money there, right? And so the power stays there, right? So what I really don't want to get into is having a group of people that don't necessarily understand the nuances of diversity, trying to just bring in people of color. I would rather see people of color empowering themselves, and even if that means that, okay, you know what, there is a person of color technology conference. I'm not saying that's what should happen. What I'm saying is I would prefer that happen than to feel like that there is an outside force or entity trying to force an ISTE or trying to force whatever type of organization it is to be more inclusive. I'd rather, I'm a fan of what I like to call the natural progression of things, right? And so I think that it kind of is what it is. And right now, because of where technology is and how accessible it is, like, it's very hard to exclude people from this platform, from the internet, from the web, from YouTube, from Twitter, from Google Plus, from Facebook. It's very hard. So to me, if there are no explicit exclusionary tactics being used, I would just kind of shy away from trying to force any entity to include something that they haven't naturally thought about including, if that makes sense.
Yep. Sarah?
Yeah, I definitely I hear what Alice saying, and I agree with the gist of it. This is 2014, so we can all choose our own adventure. We can use the internet to work for us, and that has really helped me in my own professional learning. But I echo the sentiment what you were just saying, and I do want to shout out South by Southwest because they do have a diversity check in place, but it's not just diversity of people, it's diversity of ideas, diversity
Right.
of all types of things, and not to
Right.
take away from the people who do present constantly, because they're great at it. So I
Right.
would love to see them still presenting, doing things like that. But in addition, you got to look at some of these new names that come across the board, some of these new ideas, and I
Right.
think that by that way, by taking away the whole glass ceiling, that okay, we're for example, for the same people you see that are keynoting several things, if you take away the glass ceiling and maybe you have, you could use those same companies, but maybe open it up to someone with different names, different ideas,
Right.
things of that nature, then I think that would definitely be more inclusive of new ideas, new names, new faces.
And I would say this to of the people that are normally keynoting, like the people that I've personally contacted, it has only been positive feedback. It has only been an inclusive spirit. It is I've never felt excluded. Now, I too have tried to figure out, man, how do you get more retweets? But then when I start thinking like that, I feel like I'm chasing likes on Facebook, and that's so not what I'm trying to do. So a lot of times I stop focusing on the quantity of things, like how many hits I got on YouTube, or how many followers I have on Twitter, or how many times somebody reshared something, and I just try to make sure that what I'm putting out there is something that somebody can use and make a change. Because here's what I know: everybody that finds something on my Twitter feed may not favorite it, may not retweet it, but they may go and do something with it, and that's ultimately what I want, right?
Exactly.
Everybody that sees something on YouTube, they may not leave a comment, but they may go talk about it. And I see things on YouTube and Facebook that I don't read, share, or like, or whatever, but that I end up talking about, or or I may find out, I email, or I send just a direct message. And so there's such a nuanced culture growing underneath the culture that is as effective as the things that we see. So I would just, I'm trying to focus on what I'm putting on the internet as a content creator, as opposed to what how the internet reacts to me.
Exactly.
Now, before we get out of here, Sarah, you mentioned South by Southwest EDU, and I would like for you to talk about this panel discussion you're trying to put together for people to accept, and hopefully it'll get on, and you'll be able to blog about that, etc. Where did that idea come from, and how did you pull together the partners for this panel, and what are you trying to accomplish with it?
Okay.
And how can I get on it? No.
So, well, first of all, I got to give a huge shout out to Corey Coburn. She's the organizer behind all of this. So she reached out to me and two other fantastic ladies, and who've just been doing fantastic things in the world of educational technology. And I'm just so honored to be to be considered for that, because they're all three of them. They're some of my heroes. But what we're going to do is that we are going to be talking about diversity in ed tech. And we're going to be talking about how it looks in terms of with our students and with ourselves as professionals, and how we can kind of let some voices be heard that are not necessarily being heard. So we're going to talk about diversity. We're going to talk about equality. We're going to talk about equity, a whole lot of different things. So fingers crossed
When
on
is
that.
that?
Well, it's if we get accepted. So right now it's in the panel picker for South by Southwest.
Okay.
So people can go on there and vote for it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be selected. So we'll see. Just so big shout out to Corey and to Franz and to Shelly, just some of my heroes.
Well, let me ask this: when is South by South? I know it's in the spring, but do you know the dates?
It's like March, the first week of March.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So before we get out of here, let's give our uh, parting shots or advice or words of wisdom, as we say. So, Al, what would you like to leave the viewers of this podcast with?
I would just like to say that one, I find that every day that I'm online, I am fascinated by the wonderful people that find me and that I find. And so if you're online and you're not finding wonderful people, find me and I will help you find them. I've learned like how to make lists on Twitter, and so I've started this Education Matters list. So if you have no idea who to follow on Twitter, I post this list, and you can kind of know that those tweets are going to be pretty much educational based, if that's what you're about. But just just keep looking for wonderful people, because I promise you there are a lot of them out there.
Sarah?
All right, just wanted to echo that and just say that everyone has their own story. Everybody's an expert in something. So do the world a favor, share what you're good at, get ideas from other people at the same time, and yeah, just harness the power of social media. It's fantastic to be connected.
I
Awesome,
agree.
awesome. And what I would like to say to people is do the work, get on your grind, get your expertise together, and build your own following, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, about almost a year ago, I was approached by someone about doing consulting, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, what? So I called up my boy Eric Schenecker. I said, man, they asking me what did I do, and he was like, hey, get your money, you know what I'm saying, and he was basically telling me how to go about the game. But he said more importantly, he said put in the work. When you put in the work and you make it happen, opportunities come to you. And so what I'm saying, female, person of color, I think it is time for us to put in that work. And something Al referenced earlier is letting your expertise be known. If you have to put on your own event, you do that. Blog, do a podcast, etc., and get the name out there so uh, we attract not only other people who look like us or other partners who may want to collaborate, but ISTE and South by Southwest and Q, etc., they see what we're doing, and then they start calling us to come become keynoters and et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. Don't want to get on the soapbox too much, but we're going to have two more of these. I want to definitely have one with some other people from other ethnicities to come on here and give their viewpoints. And the last show will be about solutions. So again, I appreciate you watching another episode, and thanks for coming, Al and Sarah. Peace.
My pleasure. Peace.
Yeah, thank you.